Oh hi. Erlangen, the city. In Germany, in the state of Bavaria, on the Regnitz River. Together with Nuremberg, Fürth and several small cities makes Schredenfrankonski agglomeration. The population, about 105,000 people. For December 31, 2008. Now the city is known first of all for the large University of Friedrich Alexandra in Erlangen and Nuremberg and a large number of divisions of Siemens concern. Thanks to cooperation of the developed medical component of the university and concern, the city is one of leaders in Europe and the world in the field of development and creation of modern medical equipment. Geographically, Erlangen treats central Franconia. The city is located along the Regnitz River and the canal Main Danube. To the north of the internal city, in Enstedt, there is a merge of a stream Schwabeck with Regnitz. The following communities and also intercommunal territories adjoining on Erlangen are listed below clockwise since the north. The intercommunal territory mark communities Meorendorf, Bubenreuth, Mahlerstein, Spardorf and Buckinghof, and also intercommunal territory Buckinghofer Forst. All of them belong to the area Erlangen-Hauhot. City district Nuremberg and Fjord, community Obermichalbach. Region of Fjord. The city of Herzogenaurach and community Hesdorf. Two last belong to the area Erlangen-Hauhot. City device. Officially, Erlangen's territory is divided into 9 city quarters and 40 registration districts. Along with it, according to the land registry and data of geodetic management in Erlangen, 12 urban areas which borders considerably deviate borders of registration districts are allocated. Also, there are new settlements which own names are used on an equal basis with names of quarters. Traditional borders of city quarters often deviate established officially. Some of names of historical areas are used still in spite of the fact that they aren't considered in official designations. Belong to such names Essenbach. To the north of the Schwabeck, Königsmühl River. Region of Eltersdorf. Schallerskopf. Areas of Bucherbach and Frauenarach. And Stadttrandedlun. Region of Buchenbach. Erlangen is in a transitional zone between sea and continental climate. In the city, rather small quantity of an atmospheric precipitation. 650 mm a year. Is observed that usually for continental climate. On the other hand, climate in Erlangen is quite warm, average annual temperature is 8.5 C. The kernel of the city is protected by ridge Bergberg in particular, from cold polar winds. At the same time, the Regnitz River is the reason of frequent fogs. The valley of the Regnitz River was used already in the period of a primitive system as transition between the north and the south. However, owing to her rather poor soils, she was hardly used for early agriculture and the related settlement activity. The few archaeological finds indicate that more active settling of the area in the neighborhood of Erlangen began only approximately for 2000 BB. Several burials debordered sandy plates, so-called Erlangenski symbolical stones, of times of culture of fields of funeral ballot boxes, 1200–800 years BB, with the patterns of branches of a fir tree which are cut out, presumably, were found. Some of these burials make unique group of finds. In the Fanbara near Kosbek near Erlangen, considerable finds of times of culture of fields of funeral ballot boxes, the Hallstatt and Latensky cultures were found. The bottom of a bara rests against a so-called Kosbaksky altar. The stone composition consisting of 4 big angular stones and a phallosubrazny column in the center. In this case, it is about a special gravestone construction of early Hallstatt culture. Now there is an opportunity to see reconstruction of a construction on the area. One more interesting find of late Hallstatt culture is the sword with an Antenupodobny knob found in Mjorendorf. In 976 the Kaiser Otto II Riese presented St. Martin's Church and Fort Game together with the accompanying property. Later in 1002 the Kaiser Henry II Sviatoy confirmed the act of donation. Unlike Otto II's donation, this accompanying property was described much in more detail. Among property, the country house, village of Erlangen was also mentioned. Together with confirmation of donation of 976, Henry II presented also in addition 2 square miles directly in the east from the Regnitz River, 1 square miles to the south of and to the north of the Schwabach River. These lands cover the area in which the oldest parts of the Erlangenski Old City, so-called Altstadt, lie. The detailed research of the diploma of Henry II Sviatoy allowed to come to a conclusion that the mentioned country house Erlangen had to be territorially divided from area of those 2 in addition presented square miles as they were subjects to new separate donation. As in Germany there are no more settlements with the name Erlangen, except for lying to the west of Regnitz, and today the community of the village Alt-Erlangen included in structure. By itself a conclusion arises that Erlangen came from a country house, other Erlangen famous as Old Erlangen today. Alt-Erlangen. The sizes of the presented 2 square miles approximately correspond to the area of the territory necessary for the village and confirm, thus, the assumption that during documentary certification of donation to the east of Regnitz the new settlement which by means of this donation was legalized and which as in similar cases happens, adopted the name of the settlement because of which it happened arose. The new settlement appeared on the sand dune shifted on the west which isn't flooded by high waters, that it is located in a triangle limited streets of Hauptstrasse, the Schellstrasse and the Lazarus today. The origin of the name of the settlement of Erlangen remains not clear. Attempts of a local research to coordinate the name to Erlen, an alder, an anger, a blade, were insolvent at a research of the name of the city. Development of the new settlement named since 1348 by Grosvenor. The Big Erlang was favored in particular by development of Nuremberg in the European center of trade and the growth of transport connection and trade connected with it. On the other hand, initially the village of Erlangen experienced stagnation and Alterlang. The Old Erlang, Klein Erlang, the Small Erlang. Ervanagennering began to be called from the second half of the 14th century subsequently. Malorlang. In 1361 the King Charles IV got Grosvenor, but not the initial settlement Alterlang, and made it the Leny estate of the Bohemian crown. In 1374 the King Wenzel transferred to the settlement the right to hold fairs and to have own mint. Possibly soon after 1361 the new sovereign constructed the lock to the west of the settlement in Regnitz's valley for management of the acquired possession. The lock became the residence of the managing director. In 1632, during 30 Years' War, it was destroyed. In the 18th century, poor people mainly lived in lock ruins. When since 1770 the base wall of the lock began to collapse gradually, the space for the lock was cleared away and the remains were completely demolished in 1782. Later the exact location of the place was forgotten, and absolutely unexpectedly at earthwork the base and the fountain of the lock was found. It is on now the built-up territory between Fuchsengarten and Martinsbielerstrasse. For December 31, 2015, Erlangen makes the population of the inter-district city community 108,336 people. Some hundreds of people lived in Erlangen in the Middle Ages and at the beginning of modern times. The population increased quite slowly because of frequent wars, epidemics and hunger. In 1634 the settlement was completely devastated through destructions during 30 Years' War. And only in 1655 the population and 500 inhabitants reached pre-war value. Till 1760 the population exceeded 800 people. Because of hunger from 1770 to 1772 the population decreased up to 7,724 inhabitants for 1774. The increased population up to 1,000 people till 1800 went down to 8,592 people for 1812 because of war with Napoleon again. Within the 19th century the population doubled and was 17559 in 1890. The population of the city increased up to 30,000 people in 1925, and then doubled up to 60,000 people in 1956, owing to numerical inclusions in the structure of community of the city of other communities. Because of district and territorial reform of 1972, the population of the city exceeded a boundary of card inhabitants in 1974, and thus, Erlangen began to belong to the so-called large cities. Below, the review of dynamics of population is provided in the corresponding structures of the territory. For 1820 estimated data are provided in the basic, and later data are based on data of a population census. Or on data of updatings of statistical data of Statistical Office of the Land Government. Indicators since 1871 belong to the population living constantly, and since 1925 to the living population, and since 1987 to mainly living population. Till 1871 the population was determined by not unified account method. Erlangen's arrangement on the way Nuremberg-Bamberg positively affected development of the city already in early times. In 1653 the post office was opened for writing and express mail of princes of Ternitex. Foundation of the new city in 1686 led to the sharp growth of the transport movement, so in 1708 paving of streets began. After 1900 development of motorized transport began. In 1905 8 motorcycles and 2 cars were registered. In 1912 the first bus line to Nuremberg was open. If in 1925 1 car, then in 1939 20 cars fell on 100 inhabitants. After World War II Massachusetts motorization, which decisively changed a city picture, began. Ludwig Dunhamane's channel was filled up and on his place was constructed high-speed Franksky Autobahn A73. Highway. Excess railway tracks disappeared to make room for expansion of a road network. Under pressure of environmentalist rotary decisions and some of already planned construction projects were reached, such as construction of a Kosbacki dam on Regnitsa weren't carried out. Instead, the public local message, as well as network of bicycle paths was expanded, and the downtown was freed from car traffic and became the pedestrian zone. Today through Erlangen there pass two federal highways. Autobahn A3. Arnhem. Linz. A73A and one federal highway. B4 Further is A73. Erlangen, Nuremberg, Fischbach bei Nuremberg. The railroad in Erlangen appeared with opening on August 25, 1844 of a railway piece of Ludwigsburg, the north the message Nuremberg-Bamberg. Access to interregional railway communication led to jump in development of the transport movement. On November 17, 1886 the railroad of the local message Erlangen-Grafenberg, and on April 16, 1894 the suburban message Erlangen-Bruck-Herzogenaurach was open. The transport movement on the side Nuremberg-Bamberg promptly increased after completion of the Железногородний message between these cities, and with introduction of the Intercity Express. ICE. Munich-Berlin line Erlangen also got access to ICE network and the high-speed message to both mother countries. With opening of the planned high-speed side Nuremberg, a third duration of a way to Berlin will still be reduced. However, the railroad of minor value couldn't sustain the competition to traffic. On February 16, 1963 the last trip to Grafenberg took place. Passenger traffic in Herzogenaurach, whereas freight transportation is made only through the Frauenaurach station to the territory of Peer of Erlangen, was established on September 28, 1984. To the station of an overload of garbage. After a stop of delivery of coal for power plant Frankenhof 2. At the end of 2010 the message of S-Bahn between Fort Game and Nuremberg, including some Erlangen stations, was adjusted. The water transport couldn't develop in Erlangen in spite of the fact that the city lies on the Regnitz River, because of the water lifting wheels and numerous dams built for mills. Only with opening of a part of Ludwigsburg of the channel in 1843 the water transport came to the city. On the channel over 100 locks were equipped and it intended for small barges which lasted horses. An analogue of Berlatsky work. After initial success, his share of the market soon passed to the arisen railway transport, and since 1863 the channel sustained only losses. By the end of World War II operation of the channel was stopped. The site between Nuremberg and Erlangen was filled up at the beginning of 1960, and on his place Autobahn A73 was built. However, from the idea to connect Main and Danube the channel, and thus, didn't refuse to build the waterway from the North Sea to the Black Sea. In 1959 works on new, considerable began the big and productive canal Main-Danube. European Channel. On October 30, 1970 the channel reached Erlangen, and in 1992 it was open on all the extent. Erlangen had the port in which in 2000 it was overloaded about carton of goods. Air transport is supported, including at the international level, by the Nuremberg Airport located on several kilometers to the south of Erlangen. From the city it is possible to reach the airport by many ways, including railway communication, buses, the subway, the taxi and private motor transport. Also in the neighborhood of Erlangen is several private runways which are used for the light air transport. Passenger traffic by public transport is provided with many city and long-distance bus routes of Erlangenski Municipal Services and the Franconia Regional Bus Station Omnibuswerker Franken GmbH, which are integrated into the transport system of the region of the mother country of Nuremberg. Almost all bus lines pass through the downtown. The most part of long-distance bus routes begins at the central bus station to the west of the railway station. Buses in the majority stop at bus stops Station Square and the area of Huguenots, who are to the east of the station. Other important transport hub is the intersection of streets of Juterkolles and Juterbankras. A stop Central Post Office was renamed in 2007 on Arkaden. After construction of the shopping center of the same name is Arcadian. German. Erlangen is located. The Erlangen University, Nuremberg. Since 1743. Fraunhofer Institute of Integrated Circuits. Fraunhofer Institute of Integrated Systems and Technologies of Integrated Elements. Bavarian Laser Center. Large number of the enterprises of Siemens AG concern. Annually in the second half of spring in the city the Bierbergwerk Festival, the festivity which is third largest in Bavaria after the Oktoberfest in Munich and Räuberdenfeste in Straubing is held. It is carried out annually in the first half of summer in the territory of the Palace Garden Schlossgarten. Within several days from the scene which is specially built in the middle of a garden, poets and readers make lyrical works of various forms. Festival of Classical Music Classic Tuesday. It is carried out annually at the end of summer on the bank of the lake which is to the north of the urban area of Erlangen-Dexendorf. Sites: Palace of Margraves, Old Town Hall, Nature protection zones. Around and within the city a large number of nature protection territories is located. A sign warning about the beginning of a nature protection zone, the triangle focused by top down, bordered with a green strip and with a black contour of an eagle on a white background. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.